and this is to Louis Antonakos. Why did you step down from the hospital board?
I resigned from the hospital board after 7 years of service, Donna. And I did so for a number of reasons. Those reasons were very clearly articulated in a letter that I wrote to the Board of Trustees, and I followed that up with a letter to all of Council. And then that letter was also published. One of the reasons, one of many reasons, was that I was not getting the information that I was asking of the Board of Trustees. We were going in camera for matters that we had never done in all of the years that I had been there, and I wasn't getting the answers that I needed to effectively answer questions from my municipality. I'm appointed unanimously by Council to be a liaison between the Hospital Board of Trustees and you, the residents. I was not given that right or that privilege to represent you because I wasn't getting the information. So, in short, that's the reason. But if you want to see my full text, it's on my website, louisantonakos.ca. It's all there, published. You can look at it for yourself. Call me, and I'd be happy to discuss it further.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Hello, my name is Jack Taylor. My wife and I own property on Bridge Street, so I'd like to talk a bit about the state of the downtown. So my question really is for Mayor LeBlanc. Mayor, you ran last time on a platform that identified revitalizing the downtown as a priority. After 4 years, the problems facing downtown merchants still remain. Council turned down a proposal from a local group of developers that would see more residential development in the downtown core, something that is key to a more vibrant economy among the Bridge Street shops. What ideas do you have to make a concrete improvement for Bridge Street businesses over the next 4 years?
Wendy LeBlanc.
Thank you very much, Jack, for your question. You know, Jack, I don't want to be flippant, but you know, if we had the magic formula, we could bottle it and sell it to every other small town here in Ontario. So when we do get it, we'll make ourselves rich for it. You know, I look back at the accomplishments that we've had in the last number of years. We have a very high occupancy rate. Our BIA manager, Kathy McCormick, reports that it's the highest occupancy rate for the last number of years. We've got a number of developers breathing new life into old buildings. Congratulations to people like the Dack family and Keith Rubel. We've got a group who've purchased the Leslie block and have done some wonderful things there, turning it into condominiums, just the kind of thing that we need to have happen in the downtown. Our facade improvement program has just been wonderful. You can see the results of it. We've actually added more money into that program just to make it work even better for our businesses downtown. Our events in downtown are second to none. We're well known for all of that. And of course, we've moved forward with strategic properties that will support businesses and people living in the downtown core. Now, what I'd like to do is, moving forward, what I'd like to see is to market all our events under the umbrella of the Mississippi River Days. Those of you who've lived here in the past will remember Mississippi River Days. We've got a great number of events. Let's market them to the rest of the Eastern Ontario to let them know what they're all about. I believe that we should be looking at specifically targeting markets in Ottawa and neighbouring communities. We've got the 5 independently owned ladies clothing stores here in Carleton Place. There's no other community that can boast of that in this area. And I also think that we need to play up the heritage architecture and make more of that and draw people into the community, into the downtown. Those are things that I know will work. They've worked in other communities, they can work here.
Thank you. Next question.
Mayor LeBlanc, in your 4...
Please state your name.
Wally Thorbjornson again. Mayor LeBlanc, in your 4-year term, you have turned down over $150 million worth of new development, over 500 new jobs, and the revitalization of the downtown core, as well as refusing to work with businesses and developers to capitalize on the growth opportunity our town had. You have even gone as far as blocking new businesses from coming to town. How do you expect anyone to support you after you brought the local economy to a grinding halt?
Thank you.
Oh,
Mayor
that's quite a
LeBlanc.
record, isn't it? That's quite a record. Where do I start and how can I answer in 2 minutes? Let's talk about some of the proposals that came to us from Mr. Thorbjornsen. Mr. Thorbjornsen wanted to purchase the Hooper Street development that we have set aside for employment areas to use for mixed residential and commercial purposes. He wanted to buy that at a premium price. By doing that, we wouldn't have any employment lands or any industrial lands left here in the town of Carleton Place. It's going to be a number of years before the 35 acres opens over off west of Highway 15. And what was he doing that for? To line his own pockets, a taxpayer's expense. Let's call a spade, ladies and gentlemen. He's a businessman. He wanted to buy the land at premium price so that he could line his own pocket. Where would we put new development, new industries that we hired an economic development coordinator for and was pushed and promised by the Chamber of Commerce into hiring that economic development coordinator? Where would we put those new industries if it was residential? We highlighted 11 pieces of property where he could have put on the same development, and he chose not to do that. Let's talk about quickly the Downtown Development Group. On the surface, this proposal looked like an ideal situation, bringing new people into the downtown core. But ladies and gentlemen, it was a house of cards. Those properties that he bid on and wanted to buy, he offered 1/3 of the price that they were appraised for. He also was wanting to get development charges and sewer and water charges waived at a cost of $660,000 to you, the taxpayers. Did I make a mistake? I think not. Community first.
Thank you. I'd like to hear from the other three candidates on the same question. Robert Probert.
Sure, I've got a couple of opinions, and I share everything that Mayor LeBlanc said. The Hooper Street deal, in my opinion, was a cheap attempt at trying to acquire bargain basement prices, all the development lands the town owns for economic development. Just a negotiation I, as a councillor, should be ashamed of. If I'm so part of that, you should throw me out of office. The deal that he was asking for, if you could helicopter it in tonight and pump it down in place, was fine, but it couldn't be done that way. And where the deal sort of fell apart with me at council, this presentation was, it's my way or the highway, no negotiations, take it or leave it. And then a couple minutes later, in the same proposal, his real estate agent, who's trying to make a good pitch and trying to save the situation, says, well, this is phase one. If phase one doesn't work, we'll do phase two. We're told this is a complete concept, take it or leave it. Well, you can leave it. It was a bad deal for the investors or the taxpayers of the town of Carleton Place. In terms of the Downtown Development Group, I don't understand, and I still don't to this day, why 10 or 12 private deals hinged on the town selling land to Wally and his group of investors, again on a no negotiation, take it or leave it basis. When I talked to the long list of investors that Wally provided, most of them said I know nothing about what he's talking about. That's not the deal that I understood. I thought we were just going to see if we can negotiate some better tax rates and better development deals. Most of the developers, I didn't talk to everybody on Wally's list, but those that I did disavowed themselves of that program. But imagine my surprise when this developer stated that I and most other councillors knew nothing about business while trying to negotiate a sale of all the waterfront land at the Town Hall Bridge for $1. He wanted to pay $1 for that property. The town has invested approximately $350,000 in acquiring that waterfront land. And the reason he said why, I asked him at another meeting, and he publicly stated, I need to offer this low price so I can offer Louis market price for his property, which I need in order to have enough land to build a condo.
Thank you. Louis Antonaco.
That's the first I've heard of that, and I can assure you, it is nonsense, Rob. I'm not going to dignify that with an answer. For those of you who know me, I have nothing to do with Wally Thorbjornsen. I am a councillor first and foremost.
Jerry Flynn.
Through all this, I thought there was lots of room for negotiations. When you've got people with that kind of investment money, you have to take a look at proposals. We didn't negotiate we didn't do any negotiation. We just turned it down for many reasons. Not a lot of them to do with good business. We have to look at other communities around us who have had champions, people who invested in their towns. Almont's had their champions. Smith Falls. The Fuller Construction is investing millions of dollars in Brockville. The Hooper Street development would have brought jobs. Professional buildings would have been part of the Health Village. It was supported by the BIA. It was supported by the Chamber of Commerce. It was supported by the hospital because of the Health Village aspect. And the only reason it got turned down was because of a zoning issue. And we were in the process of revamping our official plan at that time. All we had to do was draw a line around that area, and we would have had a center point right here in Carleton Place. We turned it down. Millions of dollars, tax dollars, jobs.
Thank you. Changing direction just briefly, I have another question. While keeping in mind the generally accepted governance practices in the Municipal Act, in your opinion, what effect, if any, do in-camera council meetings have on the public's confidence in the integrity of local government? The question is... Oh, I'm going to get there. I just wanted to make sure you all understood the question. Okay, Jerry Flynn.
I think it diminishes, to a certain extent, the faith that they have in us, because the information that comes out of those in-camera meetings a lot of times is not what we talked about in camera. So it's never clear what really happened in there, as far as I'm concerned. And I would like I'd like fewer in-camera sessions. I would like fewer in-camera meetings. I don't think it's the right way of doing business, and when we do go on camera, come out with a clear understanding of what the business was that we took care of in that camera session.
Thank you. Louis Antonato.
I don't like the in-camera. I don't think it does anything to build any confidence and transparency for any municipality. However, there are times when it's necessary. If we are in direct discussions with staff or purchasing property, the municipality purchasing property, I think we need to go on camera, but it's a delicate balance and one that has to be treated very, very carefully. I'd just like to point out that the in-camera meetings are our decision to make. It's not mandated. We can go in camera anytime we choose, or we can choose not to go in camera. Throughout the last 4 years and 4 years prior to that, I have probably been the only person that has consistently asked that we not go on camera. Many times we go in and there is no need for it, but it happens.
Thank you. Rob Probert.
Last election, on all candidates, and I spoke against all the closed meeting portion of our council meetings. I was concerned that people didn't understand what was going on. And when I became a councillor, I found there's a list of very defined reasons why you must go into closed camera meetings. Land sales, discussions about people, staff in particular, legal actions and that type of thing. Recently, we changed the description so that every council meeting, when we have to go into in camera, there'll be a statement read, we're going into camera for such and such a reason, and it will define what that is. It might say to go into camera to discuss legal action regarding Joseph Street, or it might say going into legal action or going into camera to discuss the staff situation. So at least now there is some definition put on the floor of what is it that we're required to go into in camera for. The law is very clear on what we must do and what we must not do, and our clerk has been very diligent at telling us when we shouldn't be in camera. Louis is right, there have been times that he has questioned it, and so have I. And I think we're all cognizant of when we go into closed camera. But in closed camera, we are not allowed to take any sort of a formal vote on any issue. We may come to a consensus, and sometimes it's more like a receive or an instruction to staff to bring forward and bring more work. What I did find surprising, though, I thought every meeting, there's so many closed sessions. Quite often it's the same subject that might go on for 6 or 7 months before it finally comes to a head, where we can put it in the public plate or have gotten the information that we needed. So a lot of it's yada, 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 next meeting we'll find more, yada, 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 we'll find more. Not 25 new topics at every particular council meeting. And we do try, and I think we can try harder to make more information available when those types of decisions are finally finalized and discussions need to be given to the public. But no vote is ever taken in a closed camera session.
Thank you. Wendy LeBlanc.
I actually have nothing more to add other than to say that we have the epitome of the town clerk who makes sure that we always stay exactly on topic. We only go into in-camera for the reasons that are stated, like Rob said, whether it's a personnel issue, land purchase issue, a legal issue. They're all laid down under the Municipal Act, and we have to follow that. We did have a question from the Ombudsman's office about one of our in-camera sessions. That's one of the jobs of the Ombudsman. And as a result of that, like Rob said, we now announce exactly why we're going into in-camera. It gives the nature of the topic that's going to be discussed. So it's a learning curve for us. We did learn. We did have, like I said, one of our meetings was taken to the Ombudsman's office, and we made the process better as a result of that.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Maureen Slade, and my question is for Mayor LeBlanc. Earlier this year, an application was made to the CRTC by an Arnprior radio station requesting that they start up a radio station here in Carleton Place. As part of that application process, Council asked you, as Mayor, and the person authorized to speak on their behalf, to write a letter in support of this endeavor, which you did. However, without the knowledge of Council, you then wrote a second letter rescinding your support. My concern is actually around transparency, and the question is, when you were asked by members of Council to show them the letters that you had written, why did you not share them with Council?
I'm going to, thank you. I'll happily clear up that issue. Actually, you're erroneous in some of the statements that you made. The Council did not ask me to write a letter on behalf of the radio station. Every member of Council received an email from the radio station asking for its support to the CRTC. I chose to write a letter to the CRTC, and I wrote it on behalf of the CRTC, on behalf of the radio station, and simply took their letter and signed my name to the bottom of it. And I admit I did it mindlessly. Several weeks later, and well after the due date that it was due, I had reason to rethink my thoughts on that. And the reason was because, ladies and gentlemen, we are well served here in Carleton Place by Lake 88 and, excuse me, and by Jack at the candidate speak. Wayne Kavanaugh is here every single weekend supporting every single event in our community. Now, just to let you know that my letter withdrawing my support, and I was very clear that I said at this time I didn't think it was necessary, played no part in the CRT's decision. They received one intervention, that's mentioned right here in this ruling, and they're saying that the CRTC, the Commission, is concerned that the addition of mainstream commercial radio station in Carleton Place could strain the station's profitability and result in undue financial impact on the station, therefore affecting its ability to continue to meet its programming obligations. My letter had nothing to do with the CRT decision.
Thank you. Next question.
My name is Joan Bennett. I have a comment before my question to Councillor Proger. You didn't want to sell a piece of land for $1, but council didn't mind buying the log house across from town hall for $1 and paying many, many thousands of dollars to move it. My question is about the use of Riverside Park. We've all agreed that Riverside Park and Carleton Place are a beautiful place to be. We had Riverside Jam here for many years. I'm sure you've all been at it at one point. We used it for camping, both along the river. I'm just talking about the riverside right now. And campers never leave a mess. It's a beautiful place. If you go to Perth or Smith Falls, they have lovely campgrounds along the river, and they charge people every weekend.
Please answer your question.
I'm just getting to that. Why are we not using this park for what it's intended for?
And you've directed that question to all of the candidates?
No.
To whom?
Just the mayoral candidates, please.
So Louis Antonakos.
There's no question that we're not using the park the way in which we did, Joan. I remember Riverside days. I remember campgrounds when I was a young boy. I don't know how to answer that question. There are some in the community that would like to see that park remain tranquil and peaceful so that people can walk their dogs and not have the campgrounds. There are others that share your concern and would like to see a little bit more activity there. And I don't see why we couldn't have that discussion going forward. I don't think it's a bad discussion. It's a good one. It's a valid one. And I'd be more than happy to sit down and have some kind of an input session from the community to determine what do we want to do with our parks. And Joan, I don't think it's just that park. I think it's all of them. Where do we want to go as a community with our parks? Do we want them quiet, peaceful, and tranquil, or do we want to kind of spice them up and have a little bit more activity like we used to when I was a little boy? I actually enjoyed those times, Joan. It was a great time at Carleton Place at the old park. So, you know, it's 50-50. I think I need more feedback from the community to give you a hard answer. But thank you for the question.
Thank you. Wendy LeBlanc.
Joan, this is one of the major facets of my platform. I'm going to introduce to our community the Mississippi Riverfront Enhancement Strategy. You know, for a long time we've had our slogan, "Meet me on the Mississippi." And you know, we've not paid anything more than just lip service to that. So Joan, what I'm going to be calling for, and you can read this in my materials that I have here and that you've received at home and also on my website, I'm calling for a community task force to come up with a way of enhancing the use of our Mississippi River and our whole riverfront. I'm going to ask them to be looking at environmental issues. We've talked about stormwater management pouring into the beach, just above the beach at Centennial Park. We've talked about goose droppings on our trails and, ladies and gentlemen, on our beaches where our children play. We've got to do something about that, and I've already started working on that. We've talked about the number of times our beach is posted because the water isn't safe. We need to have daily testing of that water. We're looking into that already. Parks and trails are important to you. I've heard about it. And I've heard lots of people say, let's bring back things like barbecues up in Riverside Park. The other thing I want to look at, and people have been talking about, is let's have canoes and kayaks and paddle boats, again, so that we can rent those. We used to be able to do that when I was a kid. It was a wonderful time in my life. I spent my life on the river. It was a great time. It's a great time for the whole community, and I want to make sure that it works for our whole community. Again, like I'm saying, community first. We've got lots of...
Thank you. I'll ask another question that has